Hi students, welcome to meeting 6, and in today's meeting we're going to discuss more about consumer attitude formation and change. This is the part 1 of the chapter. There will be another link provide all information on the second part. Here are our learning objectives. The first one, to understand what attitudes are, how they are learned, as well as their nature and characteristics. Second, to understand the composition and scope of selected models of attitudes. And the third one, to understand how experience leads to the initial formation of consumption-related attitudes. The fourth one, to understand the various ways in which consumers' attitudes are changed. And the last one, to understand how consumers' attitudes can lead to behavior and how behavior can lead to attitudes. Before we going further to discuss about several component and structure model, also characteristic of attitudes, we need to start with the definition of attitudes. This is a learned predisposition to behave in a consistently favorable or unfavorable manners with respect to a given object. Here we can know that attitude is talking about a tendency or predisposition to behave in a certain way, to show whether we are favor or unfavor toward a specific object. Just for example, when we saw an advertisement in a television, we can having some showing some expression whether we are favor or unfavor, we like it or not. And then in the next slide, we will see several characteristics that talking in detail about attitude. Some characteristics of attitude are, the first one, the attitude will be refer on a specific object. The example of this statement means that when we saw some advertisement, we will not say that we hate all the advertisement and we hate advertisement, but we will focus on one or two advertisement that we not like. Just for example, I don't like Pepsodent advertisement, or I don't like deodorant in name with the brand of Rexona advertisement. So we will mention a specific object. We will refer on a specific object. The second one, attitudes are learned predisposition. So we have learned it before based on our past experience, and we will show some tendency that we're not going to like it, another similar thing based on our previous experience. Just for example, when we arrive to a restaurant that we choose based on the friend's recommendation, but we learn during the services they're not really show a good attitude, they not show a kindly hospitality, and then we feel disappointment. And we learn that in the future I will not go to this restaurant again, and the attitude has been formed into something that unfavorable toward a specific restaurant. And the fourth one, attitude have consistency. We tend to have a consistency when we like or dislike something. When we saw similar advertisement that we don't like, then we'll usually will show a dislike. Yeah, we're unlikely to like these videos or commercial. But when we like something, then we have preference to always see this information or commercial, something that we like every day. And then the fourth one, attitude occurs within a situation, means that even though that it has a consistency, but it can be different in a different situation. Just for example, you usually not really like sambal or a spicy food, but when you're invited by your friends, for example, your best friend that not have been meet with you for years, then she offer you sambal, and then she mentioned that she made it herself and she wants you to eat it, and then you, even though that you have a consistency for not like any kinds of spicy food, but you have a willingness to try. So in a different situation, attitude can be different, but still deep inside, it's consistently that you don't like a specific object. Here are several structural models of attitude. The first one, three-component attitudes model, multi-attribute attitudes model, the trying to consume models, and then attitude towards the ads model. There's another additional one. It is attitudes towards social media model. We're going to talk a simple representation of a three components attitudes model as the first structural models for attitude. It has been mentioned conation, affection, and cognition as a part and belong to a three components to discuss about attitude. The first component is cognitive. This is knowledge and perception. They are acquired by a combination of a direct experience with the attitude object and related information from various sources. This is happen when you're being visited by a salesperson and all the information given by that salesperson is logical for you when you try to match it with your knowledge and you match it with all the information you have received before, or you try to match it with your belief. When it's logical and fit with your knowledge, then you have a tendency to form your attitude as preference based on the information given by the salesperson. The second component, affective, is talking about emotions and the feelings of a consumer about a particular product or brand. In affective, when we, let's say, see a billboard in a roadway, then we saw the celebrity that we like and we are the fans of that celebrity, and then we show some emotion and feeling to like that advertisement because the celebrity is someone we adore, and then this creates some positive feelings or positive emotion that will become happy, and it will bring some positive attitude toward a specific product or specific commercial or the billboard. The third component is connotative, the likelihood or tendency that an individual will undertake a specific action or behave in a particular way with regard to the attitude object. In a connotative, we're talking about how we show some act or how we show some behavior when we agree on a specific information came from the commercial or specific information came from the advertisement in magazine or any kinds of information that we saw from the advertisement. And when we saw it positively, then we have some specific behavior to show that we're going to buy it, we're going to try it, and then we are going to rebuy it, or showing some repetition on buying or willingness to buy, then is connotative. Is a positive attitude that will finally end up with act or buying something. The second structure model is a multi-attribute attitudes model. Based on its definition, attitude model that examines the composition of consumer attitudes in terms of selected product attributes or belief. Several types of multi-attribute attitudes model. The first one, the attitude towards object model. This is an attitude as a function of the presence of certain beliefs or attributes, useful to measure attitude toward product and service categories or specific brand. In the attitude towards object model, we're talking about some attributes that we believe will finally lead us to like or dislike any kinds of object or specific sub-object. This is an example of how attributes in smartphone will finally help us to have a positive attitudes toward a specific or particular brand of smartphone. The attributes consist of the light and the thin of the smartphone, the carrier who requires a long-term service contract, high definition screen, the looks of the smartphone that totally looks cool, and then unlimited data transmission, and then unlimited iCloud storage when we talk about iPhone, and then high definition camera, and then the notifies when the text message allowance to be exceeded, the juice pack on the protection cover, and the low price option in the repair setter screen. So all these attributes is the attributes that become important in the perspective of the consumer when help us or help the consumer to decide on buying smartphone, and it forms our positive or negative attitude toward a particular smartphone. Here, for example, Away by Oppo, yeah, when they would like to use the strategy in order to build and focus on one attribute that they have become important attribute in the eyes of the consumer. So Oppo here using Celsa Island as the endorser for the new camera, and they offer some 48 megapixel quad camera. They show that they focus on that kind of attributes in order to change the consumer attitude towards their product. And on the second advertisement, showing a mother who tries to show to their son about how thick guava juice by trying to show it near to the sunlight, and then tell the son that it's really thick unlike the other juice that mostly water, but guava of guavita is really thick because contains a lot of and more fruit. And then this is trying to also show the attribute that they want to show, that their product is really thick and full of the fruit itself. The second one is the attitude toward behavior model. This is the attitude toward behaving or acting with respect to an object rather than the attitude toward the object itself, corresponds closely to actual behavior. So in this attitude behavior model, by having a positive attitude toward a particular object or particular brand or product, then we try to show and acting some behavior toward the object. For example, willingness to buy, the form of loyalty, and then we have a positive brand image when we saw that specific brand, and then we show some repetition. So this is talking more about actual behavior when we have a positive form. But if we have a negative attitude toward a particular product, then we will not buy it. We will stop to buy the product, and then we will spread a negative word of mouth to the other consumer. So this is also talking about the behavior models of attitude. The third one is theory of reason action model. Basically, it is similar with three-component attitudes model, consists of cognitive, affective, and conative component. But the additional attitudes, it is subjective norm. Subjective norm, it is based on the people around the consumer, can be their family, their spouse, their boyfriend or girlfriend, their close friend, their best friend, their community or their circle or the place of work, that will influence the consumer to buy something, to like something, or help them to finally dislike something. It is basically because of the influence of people around the consumer. This is a simplified version of theory, reason, action. So in order to build some behavior, to form a behavior will not only depend on how their evaluation towards some specific information or commercial, not based on their belief, but also based on the subjective norm. What the other people around them believe, what is the motivation, whether they have some motivation to please their subjective norm or the people around them. It will finally create some intention, and at the end it will create some behavior. The next structural models of attitude is trying to consume theory. This is an attitude theory designed to account for many cases where the action or outcome is not certain, but instead reflects the consumer attempt to consume or to purchase. In theory of trying to consume, they try to finally, when they have a positive attitude towards something, they try to behave. They try to show a tendency to behave in a certain way. But sometimes they face some impediments or they face some struggle to create some action. This is two types of obstacle faces by the consumer. It can be from the personal impediments or the environmental impediments. In a personal impediments, it is something within the consumer control. Just for example, they try to go to concert, but they miss the bus. They try to buy a new software package, but it is too complicated for them. They try to refill the ink cartridge and the ink spilled all over the table. So they have already positive attitudes. However, they cannot finally use it, consume it, realize it, because there's some personal impediments that actually done because they are their own fault or their own mistake. But in environmental impediments, the example are they try to get a game day cap, but only first 500 fans of the baseball game receive the free cap. So this is something outside their control because the committee has said only 500 fans that possible to get the cap. And the second one, I tried to buy a new smartphone, but the product I want is out of stock. This is also a positive attitude toward a specific smartphone. They want to buy a specific smartphone, but they found out that the stock is out, is not available. And then the third one, I tried to get reservation at the best restaurant in town, but it was all booked for the night I want to go. So this is something outside the control of a consumer. The next model structure of attitude is attitude toward the ads model. A model that proposed that a consumer form various feeling, we call it as affection, and judgment, we call it as cognition, as a result of exposure to an advertisement, which in turn affect the consumer attitude toward the ads and attitude towards the brand. So here we learned about how the advertisement trying to change the consumer attitude toward their commercial or the advertisement, and finally end up with changing their attitudes toward a specific brand. Based on this concept, they try to explain how is the exposure of the advertisement, any advertisement they saw from the magazine, the television, newspaper, social media, online advertisement. And then when they get exposed by the advertisement, there is some possibility that it will be changed their cognition toward the advertisement, and then the feeling toward the advertisement or affection, and it will influence also their belief about the brand and their attitude toward the advertisement. At the end, it will change their attitude toward the brand. Just for example, you saw some advertisement from Misedap, Siwon, as the celebrity endorsement. You like Siwon, so that's why you have a positive, you will see that this commercial as something that's positive. Based on cognition, it makes sense, all the information logical. Yes, it's spicy noodles and you like it, and it's not bad for your health because you don't have any GERD. And then after that, it creates some affection. It's a happy feeling because you saw your idols. And it finally, for the feeling from the advertisement, it creates some specific belief about Misedap brand. And based on its connection, it will be also create some belief and create some attitude toward the advertisement. You have a positive attitude at the end. Both belief and then the attitude toward the ads will finally create some attitude toward the brand. So you like Mr. Dub because of the advertisement that shows you on there. It finally you have a positive feeling toward the brand. The last one of a structure model of attitude, this is an attitude towards social media post model. As a millennials or Z generation, I believe that it's really familiar for you how social media posting will create some positive attitude or can be a negative attitude. In the social media, beside a marketer, they try to post information, they also create some interaction. And furthermore, the attitude that form about the post will influence you to have whether a positive or negative attitude toward the brand. We're going to discuss more in this part some issues in attitude formation. It talks more about how attitudes are learned from the conditioning and experience, knowledge, and belief. Um, the attitudes can be learned from the conditioning situation that we have learned in the chapter 5, about how the consumer learn. It can be from a repetition that we saw from the television advertisement. It can be from how often we saw some billboard that near to our boarding house, let's say, and based on our past experience. And then it can be also from our knowledge or belief that we read from a lot of sources, can be from the social media, from the mass media, all other information from televisions. Then we have a specific beliefs. Just for example, during the pandemic situation, everyone has been socialized to use mask and hand sanitizer to clean up their hands, to make sure there is no bacteria or there is no virus in their hands as often as possible. Because if there's no water and you're around the public, you can be safe, by using the hand sanitizer to clean up your hand to make sure it's sterile from the virus. And all the information are available in the television mass media, even though it has been socialized by the government. It finally creates some knowledge or belief about that particular product, like masks or hand sanitizer. And that is why we have a positive attitude towards that two product, because we believe that by using that two product, it will help us to be safe. And then the second one, sources of influence on attitude formation can be came from the personal experience. Our experience when we have just visit a store, whether they give us a good service, whether they have a lot of variety of product, whether they have a good price offer on the product. It finally will create some positive or negative attitude toward that stores. And influence of family or influence of friend that we call before as subjective norm. Just for example, if you have a circle where most of your friends using iPhone, there are big possibility that you will also finally see iPhone positively and change your attitude toward buying the iPhone and finally end up with buying iPhone. And then the third one, direct marketing or mass media will help us to finally change our attitude. Has been informed as we call in the theory of attitude toward ads model, how advertisement or how the people, sales people try to approach us, how mass media finally change our attitudes toward a particular product. And the last one is personality factor. If you have need for recognition, you prefer a lot of product related with science and then books and news gadget that help you to find more information because you loves to learn. And then if you're need for uniqueness personality, then you always have a positive attitude toward a unique product, unusual product compared to casual product or maybe a basic product. This is the end of part 1. You can see another videos on second part to talk further about attitudes. Thank you.